High-end performance at a mid-range price. What could go wrong with that? Well, the new vacuum cleaner from Proscenic has arrived, the P16. After P8, P9, P10, P11, P12, P13, no P14, jump to P16. After the P13, there is no P14 or P15. We directly get the P16. Why that is, only the devil knows. It's irrelevant. What is more important is that this vacuum cleaner has brought a lot of new features compared to the P13. Greater suction power, a stronger motor, a larger battery, a bigger dust container, and a much longer battery life. I will tell you about these in this video. But before I go over the specifications, let's take a look at the machine itself and the accessories, as we usually do, and at the end we can discuss the experiences as usual. So now I'll set the vacuum cleaner aside, and let's move on to the accessories. The first and most important accessory, which is new for this machine, is the extension tube. Because this extension tube, as you can see, is already a foldable extension tube, a collapsible extension tube, which is great because it can be inserted into places where old vacuum cleaners couldn't reach. So, under furniture, if you bend it, you can easily slide it in with the head up and vacuum effortlessly. The collapsible tube does have a downside, namely that its length is not adjustable, but in return it is collapsible. So, in reality, this is a really good piece. Well made, the materials are good, the plastics are good, the fittings are good. And I think this collapsibility is actually a good feature. The next accessory is a crevice tool, which is a completely average piece. In this crevice tool, you won't really find anything interesting. It's made of the usual somewhat flimsy plastic one with a relatively normal fastening tab. The end doesn't light up, so it's a kind of cheap thing. It performs its task and is suitable for crevice suction, so mechanically. And technically there's no problem with it, it's just that the cost cutting is evident. After all, we're talking about a mid-range machine, so it's somewhat understandable that the manufacturer is trying to save on costs. However, with this vacuum cleaner, the most significant downgrade is not the crevice tool, but the wall mount. Because the material of the previous wall mounts was better here. There are these small serrated edges, and the entire wall mount is basically just a bracket. There are no charging contacts in it, none of the features that the old one had. You can't hang accessories on both sides. You just screw the wall mounts to the wall with 3 screws. You plug the vacuum cleaner into the wall, and you can insert the charging cable on the side here. So the charging cable just dangles somewhere in the air when you're not charging the vacuum cleaner. In my opinion, this is quite an ugly step back compared to the previous models. But it's understandable to some extent, because the machine itself hasn't become much more expensive, yet it's much more powerful and capable. So the manufacturer had to cut costs somehow, and they did it with these components, as they are not very good. What is also interesting in this whole thing is this little tool, this small device, which is used to clean out the dust container. And with this blade, we can cut off the hair, fabric, and threads that get wrapped around the roller brush. We have one motorized head. This is the usual motorized head, and really, there hasn't been any change here. It has the same V-shaped bristle design as previous vacuum cleaners, with a softer bristle and a slightly harder bristle. What's important is that it has this comb-like part underneath, which serves to strip off the hair and various fabric threads that get wrapped around. And this is actually good. The head really hasn't changed, the wheels are big, which is great. The jointed part on it is really nice. There's no issue with the quality of the plastics. These are really nice, snapping, clicking tabs that hold the tube and the head together. And of course, there are LEDs on the front, specifically 6 green LEDs that illuminate the floor while cleaning. So this is a good thing. It hasn't changed at all compared to the previous machines, but we can safely say that if something is good, why change it? After all, this has worked once before. And then comes the machine itself, which is perhaps the most important part of the whole thing. And you can see that we're talking about quite a large piece of machinery. The large piece of machinery is large because, as you can see, the dust container is insanely big. The manufacturer states in the specifications that we get a 1.5 litre dust container, which is brutally large for an upright vacuum cleaner. Such large dust containers are not common. Manufacturers usually use half litre or, in very good cases, 1 litre containers, but this one is 1.5 litres. So there are some things about that machine that I didn't really like, and this very cool grenade launcher at the bottom, or more precisely, this little furry brush at the bottom, is something I really don't like. And the reason for this is that it looks really cool and it's very trendy, because you can insert the tube here, pull it out, and then there's no tube, so you can vacuum upholstered furniture with it. This is really very trendy and looks great. But if this furry little head is separate, you can attach it to the end of the tube, for example. And then you can vacuum the tops of shelves, the books on the bookshelves, the upper shelf, the blinds, and various other things. So I think that's much better. It looks very nice and is very showy, but in my opinion, it's not as good an idea as it first appears. Then, what I don't like so much, but unfortunately we have to live with, is the size of the battery. We get a huge battery, and the reason for that is that the motor itself is powerful, large, and requires a lot of electricity, so we need to feed this motor with something to get the right amount and length of operating time. And this battery is suitable for that, but in return, it is large and heavy. This heaviness is also evident from the fact that the previous P13 was already 40 dkg lighter than the base model, the P16. And while 40 dkg might not seem like much, if you consider that the machine is 1 kg 40 dkg or 1 kg 80 dkg, then you can feel that percentage-wise, the difference is quite significant, and not in favor of the P16. But as I said, we have to live with this, because the vacuum cleaner requires this battery capacity that we get. And then let's talk a bit about the dust container and the filter system, and with that, let's transition a bit into the technical specifications. So we have a 1.5 litre dust container, which can be removed with the help of this button. The manufacturer says that this dust container, or rather the vacuum cleaner, has a 6-layer filter system, which definitely deserves a big thumbs up or a gold star. As cheap vacuum cleaners usually have 3 layers, mid-range ones have 5 layers, so having 6 layers is definitely a huge positive. What does this 6-layer system look like? There is the usual cyclonic system, which draws in the air. There's a steel filter. Inside there's a tube that spins the air again. We have a foam filter, a HEPA filter, and on this side, inside here, an additional filter that filters the air on the outgoing side. Well, this is the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen, because these filters should somehow be easy to clean. And this cover, this one here, which is supposed to, the filter holder cannot be removed just like that. You can't take it out, you can't turn it, you can't pull it out in any way. The only way is to take a screwdriver and pop out these 3 tabs that are in there. Then the plastic comes out, and behind it is the sponge filter, which you can then clean. Well, this turned out pretty lame. So the main point is that we get a huge dust container and a 6-layer filtration system, which deserves a 5-star rating or a gold star. And then I need to find a few words about the technical specifications, because there is plenty to talk about. Let's start with the good things. The good thing is that this machine has a 550 watt motor, which is considered quite powerful in this category. Let's continue with the fact that this machine has a suction power of 45,000 pascals, so 45 kilopascals. The 45 kilopascals indeed represent a high-end suction power. So we can definitely say that this vacuum cleaner, at least in terms of performance, is a high-end vacuum cleaner. But what is very nice about this, and worth mentioning, returning to the battery, is that the manufacturer claims that at the lowest setting, this vacuum cleaner has a runtime of 55 minutes, and this is true. It indeed has that much. Moreover, on turbo mode, which is the highest setting, the runtime of this vacuum cleaner is 16 minutes. 16, 16, 16, 16. In 16 minutes, you can clean a small apartment with such a vacuum cleaner, and in turbo mode, If someone had told me 2, 3, 4 years ago that it would be like this, I would have been amazed, because a few years ago, these vacuum cleaners could only run for 4 to 5 minutes in turbo mode, which is the strongest mode, and now it can do 3 or 4 times that, thanks to the relatively large battery. What else is there? Well, of course, I also performed the usual test to see what kind of noise the machine produces during operation. I checked how it performs while vacuuming. As usual, I vacuumed flour as a very fine dust, rice as a medium-sized debris, and soup pearls as larger debris. I usually test vacuum cleaners with these. I probably don't even need to mention that the 45,000 Pascal or 45 kilopascal suction power is quite brutal, so no one will have any issues with the vacuuming performance. So with this machine, I'm willing to risk saying that it can even replace a traditional vacuum cleaner if needed, because it has a large dust container, a large battery, long battery life, and a very powerful motor, so the suction power is also great. In other words, in a smaller apartment, this vacuum cleaner will be more than sufficient, and you won't need to purchase a large traditional vacuum cleaner at an astronomical price. Let's summarize. The fact is, this machine is not flawless either, and you can see that the designers try to focus a bit on performance and operating time to give us as much as possible, and because of this, they had to cut corners in certain areas. But even so, the price of this machine ended up being somewhat higher than that of its predecessor. No wonder, since it offers more. Well, that's it. I've pretty much covered everything about this vacuum cleaner. You can see that I wholeheartedly shared all the specifications. Under the video on YouTube, you will find the link that leads to the purchase. Similarly, you will find the coupon code that allows you to buy it at around 60,000 forints. Additionally, you will find a link that leads to my written review. Read it, watch it if the vacuum cleaner has caught your attention. That's all for today. Be good, take care of yourselves, and I will be back soon with another review. In the meantime, you'll subscribe to the channel. Goodbye.